Okay, so we are going to start into Chapter 20, which is the lymphatic system along with immunity. If you look here in this very beginning, the first objective wants us to give the functions of these two systems. Now, technically, immune system is not a true body system, okay, because it doesn't have organs or tissues, but it just basically is cells and proteins that are located in places. So, but these two, we call it your immune system, but technically it's not a system by itself. But anyhow, they do function together, and they function together to provide immunity to the body. Now, immunity is pretty broad, and it's a set of many different processes that protect our body from injury. They also protect our body from pathogens, which are cells that cause disease. So immune system works the body against internal and external threats. Like I said earlier, there are no organs or tissues, but they're cells and proteins. They're located in the blood and other tissues in different systems, especially the lymphatic system, and that's where these two things come together. They also have formed elements, and we've already learned about the leukocytes, which are your white blood cells, as well as some proteins in the blood plasma, which do serve an immune function. Now, your lymphatic system, right here, is a true body system. It is made of organs and tissues that not only work with the immune system, but they also have some other functions, like fluid homeostasis. And so there's more to it than just immune as far as the lymphatic system goes. Now, lymphatic system has two main components: the vessels, which are blind-ended tubes, and the tissues and organs of this lymphatic system. That includes clusters of lymphoid follicles, like your tonsils. I'm sure everybody's heard of tonsils. Your lymph nodes, spleen, and thymus. So those are the big lymphatic tissues or organs, okay, like the spleen and thymus. Now, here are some of the basic functions for lymphatic. Regulation of that interstitial fluid volume. You guys know the filtration pressure in the blood capillaries is going to favor filtration, meaning that water comes out of the plasma into the interstitial fluid. The fluid lost from the plasma is between 2 and 4 liters a day. That has to be returned back to the circulation, or else blood volume is going to drop, and that in turn is going to cause blood pressure to drop too low to keep homeostasis. Now, what the lymphatic vessels do is they pick up excess fluid in the space and they transport it through the body, and then they get it back into that cardiovascular system. When that fluid exits the space and enters into the lymphatic vessels, now the fluid is called lymph. Okay, now interstitial fluid and lymph are very similar in composition, but when it's in the lymphatic vessels, we do call that fluid lymph. All right, second big function is absorbing dietary fats. We know fats are too big in the diet. They're too big to break down to pass through those endothelial cells of the capillaries. So instead of going through into the capillaries, the dietary fats are going to go into the lymphatic vessels in the small intestines. And when we get to the digestive system, we will discuss this. So this is something that's going to come back up again. They also will, of course, travel through those lymphatic vessels from the intestines and then delivered to the blood along with that lymph fluid. And then, of course, you have the immune, and it plays a really important role with the immune system. The organs are going to filter pathogens from the lymph fluid and from the blood, and of course there's several leukocytes that are in this system, and they are going to mature in certain lymphatic organs, like the T cells, of course, maturing in that thymus. Okay, so let's talk about the lymphatic vessels and circulation. Now, lymphatic vessels, this circuit is different than the cardiovascular because there's no main pump. Like the blood vessels had the heart to pump it through, well, lymphatic vessels don't. So it's a very low pressure circuit because there is no pump to help drive it through the vessels. Most of them are having to actually transport against gravity. So we've got some things here that help with this lymphatic flow. Valves prevent them from flowing backward, just like the veins have the valves to prevent backflow of blood, so do the lymphatic vessels. And just like the deeper veins that are in between muscles, when the muscles contract, they massage lymph up toward the heart, very much like the skeletal pump in the cardiovascular system. And then also the flow of lymph is driven partly by the smooth muscle contractions that are found in the walls of these lymph vessels. Okay. All right, so let's look at lymphatic capillaries. These vessels start in tissues with little bitty tiny capillaries. They kind of form a web around, they surround the capillary bed. And although the capillaries are different, both in structure and function from the blood capillaries, they are in the same location. And you guys can see all the green here, all this little green things, that's going to be what we're talking about. These are the lymphatic capillaries. And of course, you already are familiar with the blood capillaries, which are going to be, you know, the blue, purple, and then, or the red turning into purple, turning into blue. But all these green things here, that's what we're talking about with the lymphatic capillaries. They're specialized, called lacteals, and in the small intestine, that's where the fat's collected. So that has a special term right here. Lacteals, it's going to collect the fat in the small intestine. We just talked about that's a special group of lymphatic capillaries. The next thing that we need to point out here is that they're blind-ended, which means lymphatic vasculature is one-way system. So lymph only moves away from tissues. It doesn't go to the tissues. It only moves away from the tissues, and so that's kind of different from cardiovascular. Blood capillaries, again, are a two-way system because they move blood to the tissues and away from the tissues. So that's where lymphatic is very different, is that it's a one-way system. Okay. All right, so looking at a little bit closer at these lymphatic capillaries, the cell wall are not tightly joined. They're actually able to flap open and closed. You see this right here? All right, do you see this? These are not tight junctions. They're actually opening and closing. Fluid that leaks from the blood capillaries is going to increase the fluid pressure outside of the cells. That's going to force the endothelial cells right here, what we're talking about. They're going to force these apart, and that allows a lot of fluid to enter into the lymphatic capillaries. So you can see this happening. It's happening again right here. See, there's an endothelial cell. There's an endothelial cell. The pressure out here of the fluid, because look, here's the blood. Fluid leaked out of here into here. This has increased the pressure. Okay, well, that pressure increase forced these two cells open, so the fluid now is coming into the lymphatic capillaries. Now, just the opposite. When the interstitial fluid decreases, then these right here are going to flap shut, and there's not a picture of them saying close. This right here is actually all of them open, but if the pressure decreases out here, all right, then that's going to force the cells to flap shut. Okay, and that is how we play a really big role in controlling how much fluid's between the cells. They're also leaky enough to allow cells like macrophages. This right here, y'all, that's a macrophage, and it's coming into that lymph, into that immune system to help patrol that lymphatic fluid to see if there's anything that we need to get rid of. Along the pathway of these vessels, you're going to have lymph nodes, which are lymphatic organs. Pathogens like bacteria and cancer cells in the fluid have an easier time getting into the lymphatic capillaries than they do the blood. Now, what lymph nodes do is limit the spread of these pathogens through the body because lymph nodes act like filters. Okay, they're going to trap pathogens and prevent them from going anywhere else. Now, you're probably thinking, well, tonsils, why do people have their tonsils removed? Well, tonsils are lymphatic organs, and once they get so trapped, so much pathogens and bacteria that sometimes they can't get rid of all that. So it's making people sick because it's like a host and it's a big house for bacteria to breed. So sometimes people do have to have those removed because they're causing more harm than they were causing good, if that makes sense. All right, so this, I really want you guys to pay attention to this because this is like how the systems merge. All of these vessels, these collecting lymph vessels, merge to form larger vessels, which we call lymph trunks. There are 9 trunks, all right, in the body that drain lymphatic fluid from very specific body regions. Now, here's the first 2. You're going to have 2 lumbar trunks. They're going to receive lymph from the lower limbs and the pelvic area. So you have a right lumbar trunk and a left lumbar trunk. So that's going to be 2. Okay? All right, and that's easy. But lower limbs, pelvic area. Right lumbar trunk going to the right leg and the right side of the pelvis. Left lumbar trunk going to the left leg, left side of the pelvis. Then you're going to have the jugular trunks. Okay, jugular trunks receive lymph from the head and neck. So here's your left jugular trunk, there's your right jugular trunk, and they're right here. There's the right, there's the left. Left does left side of the head and neck, right does the right side. Okay, so you have 2 of those. All right, then you have the intestinal trunk. Okay, there's only one of these. It's going to receive right here. Here's the intestinal trunk. All the fat containing lymph from the small lymphatic vessels in the small intestines. Remember, the small intestines have those lacteals, those specialized lymphatic vessels, and they're going to take all the dietary fats and absorb those. So remember, there's only one of those, and all of those are going to come right here into this intestinal trunk. All right. Then we're going to have the bronchomediastinal trunks, and you have two of them. They're going to get lymph from the thoracic cavity. So you're going to have the right bronchomediastinal trunk, right side, and then you're going to have the left. Okay, and then finally you have two subclavian trunks, and they're going to get lymph from the upper limbs. So you're going to have the right subclavian trunk and the left subclavian trunk. And again, right is going to get the right arm, left is going to get the left arm. Okay, so that gives you 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 lymphatic trunks. And what they're going to do is they're going to drain lymphatic fluid from very specific regions of the body. Okay, now stay with me here because we've got to merge into even bigger trunks. Okay, so the intestinal trunk and all the lumbar trunks are all going to drain into this swollen vessel called the cisternae chyli. All right, now right here is where I'm talking about. The right lumbar trunk, left lumbar trunk, and the intestinal. All three of these right here are going to drain into this area, which is called the cisternae chyli. Okay, now the cisternae chyli and other lymph trunks are going to drain into one of your two lymph ducts. All right, so we're going from trunks to ducts. You have two ducts. The first one is the thoracic, your thoracic duct. Everything is cisternae chyli, so everything below here, the cisternae chyli and all the trunks from the left side of your body all drain into the thoracic trunk. Okay, that's going to be draining all the lower body, everything from here down, and the left upper side. So all this business right here is all going to go into this thoracic duct. It's the largest, obviously. It's the largest lymphatic duct. Okay, now the remaining the remaining trunks are going to drain into the tiny right lymphatic duct, which is right here. Right lymphatic duct is going to have the right jugular, the right subclavian, and the right bronchomediastinal. Those three trunks are going to drain into the right lymphatic duct, which is very small compared to this one. Okay, now let me erase because we're getting kind of crazy here with all this red. Let's see. All right, so let's kind of put all that together. Okay. All right, so you have these two ducts, thoracic and right lymphatic. Remember, this one is much bigger. It drains everything below and all of the left side. So it's going to be the largest one. And then these three trunks are going to drain into that one lymphatic duct. Now, both of these, thoracic duct and the right lymphatic duct, are going to drain into their respective jugular and subclavian veins. Okay, and then that is at that point where lymphatic vessels have now returned that lymph fluid back into the cardiovascular system, because these veins, the jugular and the subclavian, that's where we're returning it back into the cardiovascular system. Okay, all right, now we're going to stop here. We will pick up with lymphoid tissues in the next video.